Welcome to the live stream of WebdriverIO Wednesdays. I'm still trying to figure out how to do all this. I spent pretty much all morning putting up a green screen right behind me, trying to get all that figured out. I've never tried that before. I just thought it was funny, a fun thing to do. I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was a fun thing to do. Today I wanted to get into a question I had, or a question someone sent me about how do you test content that has tables in it. So there's a table on here that has three different parameters that you pass in: selector, milliseconds, and reverse, and then 3 columns as well. What I want to do is be able to create a generic page object for this entire API page. That would be pretty cool. So you could say wait for exist should have a parameters table that has 3 parameters, and that way if you were to add this to a test suite, you would be able to say okay, this is like a generic page type that we're building, this API doc, and I don't want to create tests for every single action and API there, but I do want to make sure that when this website is generated, it creates this table correctly. So I'm going to just kind of double check that a few API items work and get generated correctly, and we're going to assume from there that all the rest work and are generated correctly. Okay, so I've got this list of repos that we've built out, and there's one called stable that I base everything off of. So I'm going to copy my stable and call it, let's see, table. Stable to table. And I need to copy it the right way. Then I'll go into my table. Okay, Sublime Text. I will open up Sublime Text to this table folder. I do have a configuration file in here already set up. I'll get rid of this. Is going to look real janky when I switch over, when I do the editing, because I'll be talking and then all of a sudden my screen will have messed up. I'll just clear all that out. It'll have switched entirely. But anyway, that's all boring stuff. I don't want to test in Safari. Yeah, I really need to update this stable to be better, more in line what I want to test with. Okay, we are going to test the WebdriverIO home folder. I'll use Selenium standalone service. I don't need to start a server because we'll just be testing the WebdriverIO homepage. So with that, let's see what's in our test folder. Okay, I'm just going to remove that specs. What else do we have in here? We have some error shots. That doesn't matter. Okay, let's edit test slash. Let's call this one. What were we looking at? We were looking at wait for exist. So I'll call wait for exist.js. I'm going to create a page object in here so that it can kind of be a generic page object that we use. And to load that in, I will do new yes. And in here, I need to go back into my configuration file and ignore any file that ends with page.js. Basically, I don't want to try and test these files. I'll load them in manually. So I'm going to create this api.page.js file. Let me know if you have any topics to go through in the future. Oh, that's the fun of a green screen. My body becomes invisible because I'm drinking a green soda can. So I want to define a page object. I do have a video on page objects that I'll link to. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos lately, and they always say, link to it up there. Yeah, up there at the very top, because it's in like the top corner. So I get to do that. I'll link to it up there. In mine, I don't create like this constructor title kind of thing. Although I haven't had a reason to in the past, but today's a great example because I'm going to have this generic API page that when you create it, you're going to pass in the URL to it, and it'll open it up for you. So let's see, this dot path. I'll move that over here. And then when I want to open it, I'll open that up. Okay. So and then I need to create my page before each. Wait for exist is equal to new API, and then the path to that API page. And I kind of like that. So here I will add the .html. Since API and this .html are going to be similar between all of them, I want to just pass in this part, which kind of says it's a utility and it's called wait for exist. So maybe I'll change this from wait for exist to just page, because it's a lot harder to type out than just page. So page is equal to that, and then I'm going to just define a page or just a page. That way this page is available, and I could actually throw that in this describe. So this way I can share my page between my different sessions. So I should say it should load the page. So there's going to be two parts to this. First thing, I'm going to do page.open. But I do think I will do page.open in my before each, just so that I open the page every time. Okay, now I've got chai loaded. I will load that in here. It's just a chai.js thing. I don't know if I have any videos on chai.js just in general. I do in my course, but I don't think I have any live streams of them. So it should load the page. Expect page dot. No, I'll have to do browser dot get URL. I was thinking about like page.getURL, so having it load through here, but I think for my assertions, I'd really like to say that you mainly interact via the browser object. That way you're kind of forcing yourself to make sure that what you're actually testing is the browser itself, not some sort of other thing that you've created in your page object. Now I should be able to test this if things go well, and let's see how things pop up. I can't find the module because I didn't load it correctly. Okay, try it. Yeah, so I messed up because when I copied over this example, the constructor for that API object was being initialized inside of the page object itself, instead of waiting until you define it here. So one thing I like to do is I have lowercase API.page. I'll use lowercase if I do the initialization in here. So if I start the constructor in here, and then uppercase if I'm returning a constructor. So I'm gonna close that out, and then I had my API. I'm gonna change that to capital API, and then remove that old API. And update here. So the basic idea is it's a little bit of nomenclature to help you kind of know, without having to look at the file, whether it returns a constructor to use for building out a page object, or it returns like a full page object ready for you to use. So I have saved both, and I'll run my test again. And while that's running, it should have a table. Path is not defined. Path. Oh, this dot path. So I had to reference this dot path instead of path, just the way that this variable referencing goes along. Okay, so I should browser dot is existing. In here, I want to define. Yes. That did pass. That's good. Awesome. So now I want to say page params table is existing to contain wait to feature. Back to my page object that I was creating here. I've got a params table, and then I'm going to return a reference to it. So now I need to jump in and get this table. So we're going to see what type of selector we can use for this. We do have an ID of parameters. It's pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to use a sibling selector here. So I'm going to get the element with an ID of parameters. Then I'm going to do the sibling, so the plus sign, and it's going to be a table. And rather than wait for all this to run through via console in our test, I'm just going to test it here by basically pasting that in, and you can see I've got my table here that came back. So in theory, this should work, getting an ID with parameters and then that table. Okay, let's try that out. And then the not the last, I have no idea if it's going to be the last or not, but it should have 3 parameters listed. This is where we get into some complicated stuff with rows and columns and stuff. Okay, so that passed, that's good. I did find that element, so that selector worked. Now I need to go through it from a table perspective. So I want to check that it has 3 parameters. So expect to be 3. Set num_params to 3. So I almost want to create another page object, another generic page object called a table that has, or maybe params table. We can be a little bit more specific with it. We can know that there's a heading up here. We can like check the optional status by that class name and things like that. So if I wanted to see the details for my selector, I could do like a get details and then pass in the parameter name, and it'll figure that out. Let's create a new page object. I'll just copy this over. And then here, I'll just call it params.page.js. And then in it, the constructor will be my selector. And I'll do this.table is equal to that selector. So basically, when I construct this, it's going to have a table element defined at the very beginning. I'm wondering if I want to do that differently. So instead of finding that element right away, I wait until it's called. But I'm going to go down this path for now. See how it goes. Okay. So instead of that, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to come back over here and update this to be a new params table. And pass that in there. Here, instead of returning a element from WebdriverIO, we're returning a page object reference. I was wondering if I want to move this up here, but I don't, because you can't get that params table until you've opened the page, and you can't open the page until later. I'm going to do this, return new params table, which is going to be an element, and then this.table is equal to selector, and then I need to update this to be something else. I guess I would do table.isExisting. I'm going to change that to just be params. Okay, let's try running that. And then while that's running, we can create a couple new functions. So I'm going to create a new function called getRow, getColumn. These are going to be helper functions for me. I think I also want to do something by like get param get num_params. Actually, I'll just do get params, because I can do get the number of params from the array that's returned from get params. So I'm going to comment that out right now. I'm going to comment that out right now. The first one I'm going to do is get params, which is going to be a function get params. Let me see, how do we do that? Okay, they don't actually use the function keyword. This ES6 format, I'm still trying to learn how it is. And the params I want to get are everything in that column. So I'm going to return something like a browser.element. Actually, I'm going to do this.table, because I only want to search inside that table. And then I can search within there to be elements. And I want to get these, this, and this. Those 3 elements right there. So how do I do that? I'm going to go inside the body. I'm going to say the first child of every TR inside the body. So I'm going to do tbody, TR, TD, first child. Elements is going to return an array of these elements, an array of objects basically. That's going to get me the params, and then I'll expect that to be 3. So we'll come back here, expect page dot params to 3. So we're going to go to our page, get the params and the table inside of there, and we're going to get the params and expect them to have a length of 3. And really, I don't need that dot table. That's just a reference to something else. I'll just do get params. And I wonder if I want the params themselves, I'll just say all the table rows. So I'm going to split this out and say get param name, and this is going to take the param, the index, the row, I guess, row index. I don't know. I don't really know what I want to do with this. It's kind of a second thought, but basically I want to get the name for a row. This .table.elements, and here I change that back to tr. Basically, I just want to get all the elements. Oops, go back. I'm going to get this tr, and that tr, and that tr. And I'll run that test. Should have selector. How about like a has param? And you pass in the name of the parameter you want to get to. So I returned an object. I bet it has like a value on it. This.table.elements. So I'll just come in here and console log that. Figure out exactly what it's going to be. That's what we're looking at. Okay, while that's running, I'm going to keep going down this path of having a selector parameter. Should have parameters. Actually, I don't want to write 3 tests that look all the same. So I want to get parameter names. Get parameter names. Yeah, I'll call it get parameter names, or maybe just get names, because it's kind of redundant here. Parameter.getNames.toEqual, and I'm going to expect this to be selector, ms, and reverse. Okay, here's that. Let's see. Oh, it didn't log it out. Object session value. Did I do something wrong? I guess I'll log this out and see what that is. Okay, while we're running that again, we'll keep on going down. This should have selector parameter route. Should have, and really, I guess like we could comment out this one because it's kind of handled by having this test. But I don't know. I kind of like having 2 tests because one, we already have it written, so why get rid of it? If it causes trouble in the future, we could do something with it. But you know, it's a passing test, or it's a test that checks something. And the other nice thing about that is this test could fail because it got the wrong name, but this test could still pass. So it would kind of help you narrow down where you need to be working on. Okay, the wait for exist should have selector parameter. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I needed the value. That's what I thought. Dot value. What I'm thinking about right now is, do I want to have the value be defined here, or do I want to have it be defined over here? And I feel like I want to have it over here because the way WebdriverIO handles this object allows you to do something like get params, and then you could do another get element or something like that. So you can, element, and you can go through there. So it's a little bit more flexible, allowing returning the full object versus just this array of objects. Yeah, we'll leave it for there for now. Okay, so now I need to write this get names function. Oh, this isn't even working yet, is it? Get param name. And I think if I call get text on a object, an elements object, it actually will return an array of those text values. And I guess the one thing that's going to fail though is when I do get that text, this optional, where it states optional is still going to be in there. What if I remove, so I get the parameters. This is going to be a elements object. I'm going to get the text, which is going to return a array of strings, an array of texts, and I'm going to map that array text and return text dots. I'm going to get the text. I'm going to map through that array, so that's basically going to go one by one through the array and return and overwrite the value in the array with whatever I define here. Okay, so I'm just going to replace any text that has optional in it. I'm going to replace with nothing. So I'm just going to get rid of it. That way it is just the name and not optional as well. I'm going to do it.only here so that it only runs this test for us. Let's try this out and see how see what's up. My head gets cut off. Cut off. Okay, so we do have an array, but oh, you know what? You know what happened? I know what happened. This getText returned a array inside an array, I think. So I need to do something like let values equal, and then I'm just gonna log out the values, but I think I'll do values.map on there, and it's weird because you would think that doesn't do anything different. I wonder if I need to do like a values.value. At some point I might need to jump into the debug mode just to see what all is coming back from this. So I'm going to log out these values, and then I'll also log this out as well. Selector, string, CSS selector to query, optional. What I was doing wrong here is I'm using getParams, and that's returning the entire table row versus getParamNames, which returns just that. So what I want to do is use getParamNames. I'll just update that and change that over. Okay, get the name for a specific row by its index. I'm going to get rid of that because we're not doing that anymore. So this is going to get all the param, like all the details on specific params, or on all the entire table basically. This is just going to get the names of each one, and then get names text. Change that to get names text. Technically, I could just move this. Yeah, I could move all of this to just go right here, but I don't want to do that because I may need this for another option in the future. So I will, how about just get names? That's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so we did get that. We have our value selector. So values, maybe I should do that instead. That instead being the thing that I thought of in my head. So I'm gonna say my names, this dot get names dot map. So I'm gonna get the names, and that's going to be a name element. And then I'm going to return name.getText and replace it, if that makes sense. So here, this is going to be a name element. So I'll just do name L to be a little bit clearer, or maybe that should just be element. And we'll do element.getText and then remove the optional. Get the text components. Try that now. Do y'all watch any other live streamers who do coding? I'm curious to know. Maybe this .getNames is returning this full object and not the value inside of it. So I need names.value.map. I think that is what I was doing wrong. What if I move this up to here, move that kind of back, because we had moved that out because I had messed up this getParams. I was using the getParams instead of the getNames. So now that I have the specific elements that I want, I can do getText, which should return the names, just a straight array of names. You know what's weird is it looks like anything I log inside of here is just disappearing into the ether, into the unknown. So that should be text. Names I'm gonna have to text or replace optional. and we'll go from there. Get names text. Basically, this came back with the right text that we wanted. It just has an extra line break in that text, and we need to trim that out. So we do have a trim function in Node.js. Just got to double check this. Yeah, I could do a replace like I'm doing with the optional. I feel like trim is part of, yeah, trim method, and I'm guessing it's part of Node, I hope. So I will do a text.trim, not trim. I'll replace it and then trim it out. Because if I try to trim it out before, it may not, because this optional text is there. So let's give that a shot. I'll do that. That's weird. It does lowercase. You know, I think that's get text that does that. Or well, elements, wait for exists. Oh, it isn't a capital. Why was I thinking that it was a capital? Oh, because I know now. I know why. Because this selector, this parameters was a capital. And so I was thinking that selector would be a capital for some strange reason. And let's run this one more time, cross our fingers, and hope that everything is good. Selector, MS reverse, what? Those are the same, aren't they? So those look exactly the same. I think it needs to deep equal. Or let's go into chai. Yeah, so deep is different from a strict equal. Okay, so yeah, that was it. It's a deep equal because of array equality. Basically, it was expecting this array to be the same array as this one, not to just look exactly the same. It's expecting it to be the exact same reference in there. So that's what's going on there. I'll run this test one last time. And yeah, that's what we've got going so far. I could build out this API to be a little bit more comprehensive than just opening a page, because really that's not all that helpful. But we can also create like another API and go from there. Great, I've got 4 passing tests. So that is that. If you have any questions or anything on this, either leave a comment or reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is klamping, or reach out to me on the Gitter WebdriverIO page, or email me as well, klamping at a popular Google-based email service. I don't know why I didn't just say Gmail. It's kind of weird. Yeah, thanks for tuning in and saying hi, and for watching. Hope you found it useful, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.